Hi everyone and welcome to a new video. Now, excuse the voice. I was sick last week, so yes, I was sick during vacation, which is shit, but it is what it is. And you can still tell by my voice, I know that, but I really wanted to record the video now before I change my mind about it. So you will have to deal with the voice. This is the Booktube Top 10 video that has been going around for quite a bit. And it was originally created by Jason. I will link his video as well as all the rules or things you have to look out for when compiling the list in the description box. I often said that I would not be able to do the tag or the list because I thought it's not going to work with the mindset I look at books, until Matthew came along and saved the day once more and made me aware of the fact that I personally can decide on what that top 10 list represents for me personally. So it is not necessarily my favorite books of all time or the books I think are the best, but I've chosen to do the list based on how much those books have either influenced my life or my reading or represent me or my reading taste best. So I've chosen 10 books for that. Excuse me. And yes, I will also link those 10 books as a list in the description box, but make sure you watch the video first before you go spoil yourself in the description box. I would like to go in reverse order and start with number 10. And for number 10, I chose The Witch of Portobello by Paulo Coelho. And I've chosen this book because it influenced me as a reader in a case that I wanted to go out more and look for other perspectives, in a sense, not necessarily just other to myself or to my experience, but other in the sense that their stories aren't told as much as other stories in literature. And that's why I wanted to reach out those narratives more after reading this book. And it also influenced me as a person in regards of not being so filled with judgment. Not that I ever was really, but to first take a step back and let the person tell their story instead of listening to someone trying to tell another person's story. So that's how this book has influenced me, both as a reader and as a person in general. Coming in at number 9 or place 9, I've chosen the book Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert. And I've recently made a series where I talked you through my annotations. And if you have watched that series. You know, I was not just overall excited about this book, and not always was I agreeing with Elizabeth Gilbert, but I've put it on the list because this book, I've read it twice now. I've read it in my teens and I've read it just recently, and both times it was just the right time for me to read this book, and it sort of gave me this push to pursue what I think is right for me, and to go, as cheesy as it sounds, to go on my my own journey and try to find myself, not necessarily only through traveling as she does in this book, but through trying to navigate through life in general. So that's why I chose that one. Now, as number 8, I chose Circle of Fire by Michelle Zink. And this is the last book in the trilogy, the Prophecy of Sisters trilogy. And I've chose the last book because it wraps up the whole story best. I've not chosen the first one because it's more of a building the world kind of book. But the last book wraps everything up, and the series in general, though, reminds me of why I first started reading and first fell in love with reading, and that's like exploring a world different to my own and almost trying to escape from not necessarily my world, but maybe from the problems of my world. And it's weird because it obviously deals with otherworldly problems, so I'm escaping from my own problems to other people's problems. But I think if you started out with reading for the sake of trying to find an escape for your own like daily problems, I think you will understand. And going back, I think I've read this series at least 3 or 4 times now, and I'm not a massive rereader, so that really shows what this series means to me. And I know it's not perfect, and it definitely has flaws, and reading it now I see it and I get annoyed at certain things a lot, but it's always a comfort. It's always nice to go back. I adore the concept, the world. Yeah, it's just a big comfort for me, and a huge example of how much an author can make with just like the world building and the setting, where you can just escape as a reader. So that's why I chose that one as my number 8. As my number 7, I've chosen 1984 by George Orwell. And I've chosen that one because I think it taught me a lot about what a book can tell us about our present, our past, and can teach us what to look out for and how to change what is currently happening, and not just believing everything we are being told. And it definitely also opened up a whole new genre for me, which I would like to explore more. So yeah, that's why I've chosen that book. And you can, of course, go on the political side of the book as well, but to me it's more of a personality building than anything else, really. Then at number 6, I placed The Blue Girl by Laurie Foos, and I've just recently read this book. I also made a series about that, and yeah, it's just, I don't know what it is about this book, but I think it's that mix of experimental writing, magical realism, and that deep meaning transported in the story that just really captured my fascination and almost put me back to where I was when I was a reader as a child, with that imagination, but always feeling like you have learned something new. And that's why I think I've chosen to include this book on my list, even though it's a pretty new read. Because for me it represents a lot of the reading I did as a child, but in an adult book, or like in a book I've read as an adult. Yeah, so that's why I put this one on my list. Then at number 5, I have The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. I included this one mainly because I had such a deep personal connection to the characters in this book, and it represents the sort of people I grew to know over the years, especially over the summers, and it holds a certain nostalgia for that part of my growing up and of trying to understand and picture a life so different from my own. That still was such a massive part of my life, and I think this book really captured those people, especially those men, quite well. So I definitely included this and as a book in my top 5 for that reason. Then I included a Swiss or like a German book because I just could not hold back from including this, and that's Hunkelers Geheimnis by Hans-Jürg Schneider. And this is the last one, or the last published book from the Hunkeler series by Swiss author Hans-Jürg Schneider. And I included this because, firstly, because it really set me on a crime binge, which I'm very grateful for, because I found much joy, and sounds weird with crime fiction, but a lot of time spent reading those books have very fond memories, and it set me on a binge of reading more and showing me how fascinated I am by the genre. And I think when a book does that, I've chosen the last one because, again, as a representation of the whole series. And when a book or a series does that, it will always stay with you because it was the first one that sort of reminded you of what it is that you look for in a book. And a lot of crime fiction really captures that well, and especially the series is perfect with that. So that's my number 4. My number 3 is The Lost Honor of Katharina Blum by Heinrich Bell. This influenced me on all sorts of levels, as a reader, as a person, in a sense that it made me look at the world more critically, but also made me aware of how am I going to say that without getting too personal? Okay. It made me aware of the fact that sometimes I make life choices more to please others than myself. And it made me question my life choices and the way people judge them a lot more critically, and made me go on a path to find what I really want to do. And besides also teaching me to look more critically at things. So that's that. Then the second one is I think out of all books, the book that means the most to me personally, and that's The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. This book and the movie as well were there for me in a time where not a lot of things went well for me. And yeah, first it was always the character of Charlie, of course, I related, but the more I grew older and the more I realized who I am, the more I saw myself in Sam as well. And that revelation changed me all over again. And I will never forget what that book made me think of and made me aware of who I am as a person. Yeah, so I will definitely do a video sometime, maybe, we'll see, on The Perks of Being a Wallflower, both the book and the movie. So yeah, and my number 1 might not be a surprise. I've debated if I should put it as number 1, but I don't think there's any way to go around putting it as number 1, and that's Agnes by Peter Stamm. Yeah, just because, first of all, because of the beauty that lies within its writing. Then of course the fascination that it set upon the author and his other writings, but also just the spark it gave me for my own writing and for changing a lot of how I view reading now, currently. So yeah, that's my probably not so surprising number 1. And that's my list. So yeah, I will also link Matthew's video because he inspired me to actually get my stuff together and finally make the list, because he's actually the only one who really made me aware of doing it just the way I want to do. And yeah, I think that's very nice of him, and I'm really glad that I decided to make the list, even though probably my voice sounds terrible, but you have to deal with it, because otherwise I think I would have changed my mind and would make things worse. But now you have the video, and I hope you understand why I picked those books. Right now, I'm sure in a few weeks even the list might look a bit different, but for now that's what it is. And I hope to see you soon sometime. I don't know when. I'm still enjoying my summer break, even though I was sick as hell last week. It was terrible. But yeah, trying to enjoy the second week. I'm feeling much better, even though I don't really sound much better. So yeah, thanks for watching, and yeah, I will see you soon. Bye.